Imagine releasing a thing and then looking back and going, we were 500% wrong on that. Bungie's final TWID before the last update in Destiny 2. A lot of information here to unpack, along with the Dev Insight article that talks about some sandbox updates. The TWID mainly went over Monument of Triumph rewards, the new tenets of bravery, devotion, sacrifice, and death. These will be how you earn rewards through the Monument of Triumph. Things like Shatter White, Super Black, ships, shaders, engrams containing loot from events no longer in the game, like Dawning, Festival of Lost, Guardian Games, Solstice. Pretty funny, they're introducing a new currency called Legendary Marks. Elite ball knowledge havers of Destiny will know that Legendary Marks are indeed not new, but in fact, the original in-game currency of Destiny 1. TWID also talked about some Pride rewards, final Monument of Triumph shirt. They're also releasing a new Monument of Triumph digital soundtrack with an hour of music. What is probably going to be my favorite emblem ever, Toast to Monument, has all of the allies except for Devrim K in an emblem. And a nod to the veterans, the Old Lights emblem. If your Destiny 2 account has had playtime from Destiny 2 to Forsaken, Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, Witch Queen, Lightfall, Final Shape, and Year of Prophecy, you get access to this emblem that shows the timeline of Destiny 1 and 2. Bungie also released a Monument of Triumph trailer earlier today, but we've already watched it and reviewed it and broke it down in a separate video. So that was the TWID for this week. The TWID included a link to the Dev Insight Abilities and Armor preview. We've already read this. I'm gonna go through and hit the highlights, such as a 500% damage bonus to melee attack damage from Praxic Vestments. Praxic Vestments, the air move jetpack. So yeah, a whole lot of exotic tuning, ability tuning, armor tuning. I'm gonna try just to hit my favorites and the big ones you need to know about. New subclass abilities, solar and void aspects. Up first, the Titan Shield Burst. Look at this video. The Towering Barricade is a solar wall that moves forward and explodes. The hell? Rally Barricade will give your shots Scorch, which results in an ignition. While your barricade is deployed, activate your class ability again to remotely detonate your wall, scorching combatants caught in the detonation. Dealing damage increases the power of the blast. If your class stats above 100, does more damage. New Hunter Gunslinger aspect, Cracked Shot, mini golden gun on your class ability. Check the video out. Aiming at targets marks them up to 3, or you can just mark 1 for 3 shots with the class ability. Looks like each shot here does 354 damage to the boss, while a single grenade does 1,000. So 3 shots on the boss, about equal to 1 grenade. Activate your class ability, fire up to 3 scorching shots at combatants you've marked. Aim at targets to mark them. Landing shots cures you. Class ability stat above 100 does more damage. Finally, the Warlock Voidwalker Soul Siphon aspect. Here's a video on it. Ready this aspect by striking a foe with your powered melee. Once ready, your melee ability begins to siphon energy from all combatants in front of you. Gives you an overshield, gives you class ability energy back, and the damage is scaled with melee stat over 100. They talked about new grenades, the Stasis Shatter Grenade, sticks to combatants, explodes in razor sharp shrapnel. Shrapnel ricochets off surfaces, so good in small areas, like inside of a Ward of Dawn. There's a video preview. Strand Slice Wire Grenade, a grenade that bounces, releases multiple whirling threads, severing targets. The Night Stalker Melee Phantom Surge. No longer are we stuck with smoke bombs. We have an aggressive anime AF melee, goes through enemies, gives you an overshield. Getting at least 1 kill gives you half your melee back. Ability reworks. Trapper's Ambush now does damage. Now is related to class ability instead of melee. Video preview. No longer just debuffs. Also, if you're invis, it does more damage. If you have any void buff on you, your Trapper's Ambush now does a lot more damage. Ward of Dawn has been reworked. You can now pick up Ward of Dawn and throw it at least twice. Every enemy inside is weakened. You get Armor of Light while inside. Saint 14 exotic has also been changed and reworked. We'll go over that later. The Ward of Dawn is now twice as large. It's a massive Thunderdome. Mind Spun Invocation for Strand Warlock Broodweavers. Threadling Grenade now creates a Strand Buddy. You got Arc Buddy, Void Buddy, Solar. Now you got Strand Buddy, baby. Hell yeah. For Stasis, all the Harvest aspects, Teutonic Grim and Glacial, will give Shatter Shards intrinsically now. So they've all been reworked. Taking damage with Frost Armor will grant ability energy, melee for Titans, grenade energy for Warlock, class ability for Hunters, and Frost Armor stacks don't disappear when the timer runs out. They melt off one at a time. Max damage resist has been increased to 35% DR with Max Frost Armor. Ability balance changes. They go through a ton of stuff here. I'm not going to mention them all, but a lot has changed. Basically, a whole lot of buffs across the board. Buffs to literally everything, it feels like. Shoulder charges for Titan. Each one has been increased by 100%. Stormcaller, Chainlight, and Melee damage increased by 100%. While Heat Rises is active on Dawnblade, combatants will miss more shots, and Burst Glide has its normal burst of speed. Strikers, the Arc Titans, the Thruster ability can now be activated in the air. Twilight Garrison from D1 is basically back, but it's built into just the Thruster class ability. So you have to give up your wall, but now you can change direction in midair as a Titan. Nerf alert. We have one nerf here. Hunter Mobius Quiver. The max damage with Mobius Quiver buffed to crossbows has been reduced by 50%. This was broken with the heavy crossbow for a while. Now brought in line. Nerf alert. Blade Barrage. Hunter Solar super buff. Increased projectile speed, tracking, detonation size, detonation damage, knife detonations now Scorch. Plus huge buffs to Shards of Galanor, mentioned later. Ascension, the aspect for Arc Hunters, class stat above 100 does more damage now. Ascension also counts as a class ability for all perks and abilities. Finally, why did the game have to die for us to get everything we've ever wanted? Strand Hunters now have another way to get Woven Mail. Rope Dart now grants Woven Mail based on the number of targets defeated. Threaded Spectre, the Strand Decoy, now does detonation damage that scales based on your class stat being over 100. Lots of buffs to fragment slots for aspects. They go from 2 to 3 and many different aspects. Nerf alert, nerf alert. We finally have grapple brought into line a little bit. This is used to break the game in many different ways for a lot of solo players. Reduced max grapple damage bonus by the grenade stat by 50%, and the damage bonus applied from grenade and melee stats over 100 is now calculated additively instead of multiplicatively. Just overall less damage, big word. Now, with all these changes to the ability sandbox, Bungie has said that as of late, the PvE sandbox has felt like it's too ability dependent. So they're reducing globally the cooldowns of all ability stats by 20%. Nerf alert. Maximum active ability cooldown reduced from 190 to 125. Honestly, I'm not sure what this active ability cooldown bonus means. It might have something to do with exotics, but I'm not 1000% sure. Their intent here is to only impact the most meta min-maxing of builds. The floor of ability uptime remains the same, but the highly optimized builds that trivialize combat should be brought down a little bit with this nerf. And finally, after what feels like years of super spam during DPS, there is now going to be reduced super energy generation from dealing damage to bosses by 60%. When I first read this, I was like, one of my most hated things about doing the last day one raid is you had to like super 6 times in a single phase, and it just felt so stupid. And they finally brought it into line now that this is the last update. Day one, I was like, get rid of this. This next section talks about armor 3-point updates. The biggest takeaway from this is that they're adding double the amount of archetypes. Currently, there's 6 archetypes of different armor that you can get with Armor 3.0. This combines different primary and secondary stats together. That determines how many stat points you get per stat. This just doubles the amount of archetypes. Your first reaction to that might be, oh my God, that's so much to grind. What am I gonna do? Luckily, they're increasing the effectiveness of armorer mods on your ghost. Previously, when choosing an archetype for your ghost, say gunner, it would drop that archetype 1 out of every 3 times. Now they're buffing that to 1 out of every 2 times, making grinding for specific archetypes much easier. Up next is exotic armor stats. All exotic armor past and present will have tier 5 stats, access to all tuning mods. Again, this is retroactive. You can pull these straight out of collections. There'll be tier 5s. You no longer have to worry about grinding exotic armor. If you've already acquired it, you're good. Armor set bonuses. Nerf alert. They're finally bringing down the smoke jumper 2-piece set perk. That's the damage resistance by picking up an orb. When combined with other damage resistance builds in the game, it was very strong. They're bringing that down from 50 to 40%. They also showed off some new armor set perks that are coming. Loyal void moths. Hello? Armor 3.0 will not have access to raid mods. That's only available in Armor 2.0. However, you can go to Hawthorne with Spoils of Conquest and focus some Armor 2.0 drops if you want to use raid mods. Exotic armor balance preview. So much here has changed. So many buffs, so many changes. Here's some of my favorites. Worm husk buff, maybe usable in PvE. I doubt that. Shards of Galanor will do as much damage as Thunder Crash and apparently still give back super energy based on knife hits. Hitting 5 out of the 7 knives in a volley of Blade Barrage will release a solar explosion and shrapnel. Sprint with Frosties now grants frost armor while sprinting. Increased stasis weapon damage. We'll see how that plays out. Shinobu's Vow now makes your skip grenades skip again and releasing bonus skip seekers per bounce. Imagine 6 Shinobu Vow enjoyer hunters all spamming skip grenades. VFX overload. Changes to Moth Keepers. Kind of a memey exotic. They've put a lot of changes into this. Might actually be silly fun. Arc Moths have been buffed. They move much faster. Grenade stat over 100 increases moth lethality. Works more like gunpowder gamble. Keep your base grenade and you can have your moth grenades. Lucky Pants, nerf alert, nerf alert. Lucky Pants has been broken forever. They don't want the game to live in a Lucky Pants meta. Aaron has vowed increased. Uncivil Discourse, the Renegade's heat weapon, was doing crazy damage with Lucky Pants. That's been decreased. Boss damage decreased by 33%. Probably the biggest nerf in the entire update with Monument of Triumph is Lucky Pants or the grapple melee, but it was out of line and I'm a hunter main. Hollowfire Heart, Titan Exotic, buffed a lot of changes, a lot of reworks. I'll be surprised if it's still not completely ignored. Praxic Vestments. No one used these. It was garbage. They've increased the melee attack by 500%. Imagine releasing a thing and then looking back and going, we were 500% wrong on that. Increased jetpack fuel gain per weapon kill in PvE, per power melee kill, buff. Improve the jetpack flight experience, faster, less windup time, no backup plans. A void specific exotic. We have asked for years for this to be subclass agnostic, to be able to be used on any subclass. Durfin, thanks for follow. Big brave move. It will now trigger off both shotgun and any melee final blows. Start a health regen instead of a void overshield. A shotgun or melee blow will extend any of these active buffs on you. Overshield, restoration, amplified frost armor, woven mail. Doesn't mention invisibility. Doesn't mention some other active defensive buffs. Shotgun damage bonus is now active when you have any of the above noted defensive buffs, as well as buffing melee damage on any subclass. It only took the game dying. Helm of Saint 14. Ward of Dawn has been completely reworked. They've removed the effect of no longer disorienting enemies inside your Ward of Dawn. They are weakened while inside your new Ward of Dawn now. Helm of Saint 14 will not disorient enemies inside Ward of Dawn or when you block with Sentinel Shield. While Weapons of Light is active, kills or sustained damage from any source grants stacks of the Saint. Picking up your Ward of Dawn consumes the stacks and extends your ward's duration. Also, synergy with, I believe, Bastion has been adjusted, but I'm not sure exactly what that results in. And Ward of Dawn will still let you have Weapons of Light outside your ward with a new VFX to help show that and indicate that. Warlock exotics, I can't pronounce it, but it's the Strand super damage one. Your burst damage from the super combine increased by 22%, equal to Thunder Crash. Skull of Dire Ahamkara, my favorite change in this whole update. Been collecting dust in the vault forever. Now after casting a Nova Bomb, you get a short period where you can cast a second Nova Bomb Lance. And if you destroy the first Nova Bomb with the Lance Nova Bomb, it creates a Nova Vortex alongside the Cataclysm Nova Bomb Seekers. Listen to the way Bungie puts this and think about this in the context of it being the last update to Destiny 2. Quote, last year Voidwalker got a second melee charge and a second grenade charge with Chaos Accelerant. Why not a second cast of Nova Bomb? Better yet, how about we bring back Nova Bomb Lance? Why stop there? Maybe you could detonate your Cataclysm Nova Bomb with Nova Lance for massive boss damage if you time it right. But you're special. You can time it right every time. Can't you, oh player mine? They just pulling out all the stops. We're so back, but it's so over. Imagine 6 Skull of Dire Ahamkara Warlocks Nova bombing twice and then creating a vortex. Isn't that 3 separate Nova Bombs for each place? Isn't that 18 types of Nova Bombs out there? Nerf alert, nothing manacles. You've been popping off since December with Renegades. Extra Seekers can no longer chain off themselves. Reduced Extra Seekers from 4 to 3. Reduce the range and the lifetime. Controversial holds. Nerf alert. Reduced energy when using magnetic or handheld supernova. That's returned. In addition, they fixed the health chunking bug. This is where if you stood and threw it in the right way, the game would bug out and do crazy damage. They fixed it. Those are all my biggest takeaways. I'm excited for a lot of this stuff. I'm just bummed it took the game's last update to get a lot of the stuff we've been asking for. They really were listening. I'll be streaming the hell out of this on June 9th, twitch.tv/leopard. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Slap that like button like your mama taught you, or slap your mama or something like that. Ha!